Chinese democracy. What sort of hype was around that album, Chinese Democracy? What was the hype around Chinese democracy? Okay, I'll give you a perfect example of what happened. Can you hear that? One of the neighbours is trying to sing. I'll tell you exactly what happened with Chinese democracy and the hype. So this is what happened. It was advertised a bit, and okay, so there was a night that used to be on every few months in Sydney. It used to happen at Herman's Bar. It's called No Life Till Leather, and which turned into Back in the Day. And in 2008, Chinese democracy was advertised a little bit, not overly advertised, but advertised a bit. And for this particular night, for the Back in the Day, it was, might have still been No Life Till Leather at that point. It said, it said the first 20 people at the door will receive a poster. I can't remember actually what it was now. It said the first 20 people will receive something. I think it could have been a poster, a limited edition poster. I cannot remember now, but it was something. And it said the first 20 people. I thought, oh my gosh, better get there early. So on the night, I got there. I would usually get there on time or 30 minutes after it started. And this particular evening, I thought, I better get there early. I got there 40 minutes early. This is at corner of City Road in Cleveland. Corner of City Road, Herman's Bar in Sydney, just down from Newtown. And I thought, there's going to be a queue a mile long. The queue will be all the way down the street. I got there early, and I alighted from the bus, and I went over to Herman's Bar, and I was like, there was no one there. I'm like, I do have the right night. So I walked in, there's an outside area where they have tables and chairs, and there were 6 people sitting at one of the tables. So I walked up half awkwardly, so I said, hello. They went, hello. I said, just to verify, I said, you're waiting for the queue for Guns N' Roses for Chinese democracy. I said, oh, and a few of them said, yep, we're in the queue. I said, it is tonight. They said, yep. You all here for Guns N' Roses? And one of them said, oh, I'm not, I'm just here for these guys, just hanging up and, along for the ride for the night. I'm just here. And I said, this is the queue. And they said, yep. I said, huh? I said, oh, for the first 20 people who received this. I said, yep. And they said, you're the 7th person. And I'm like, huh? And I said, I thought the queue would stretch down the street. And they said, I don't think anyone cares about it anymore. And I'm like, I thought there'd be 200 people here. They went, not for this. And so the queue was, I was the 7th person there, and I sat with them until it opened. They were cool people, nice people, and then, and No Life Till Leather had a regular crowd, everyone knew each other, so it was a regular crowd. It was 80% regular and 20% people who'd never been there before. And it was always a night to look forward to. And so I think around about 10 minutes before the doors opened, because I was like, what, I don't want to miss out on it. And they said, think you're going to be okay, mate. It's all right, you're number 7 or whatever. Join the queue. When the doors opened, so when they opened the doors, there were about 20 people in the queue. And the door people, so when I pressed record, they decided to sing. the door people didn't say, "Oh, you're here for Guns N' Roses, you're here for Guns N' Roses." It wasn't mentioned at all. But as we were going inside, I was handed something. It was probably a poster. I was handed something, and I was like, "Yeah!" Got inside, and the DJs that night, and there was, I'm fairly certain that the guy, I think Craig from Utopia, I think he was there that night. They're going to play the album, Chinese Democracy. They're going to play it throughout the night. And I remember them being very nonchalant about it. I said, "Oh, Chinese Democracy." They said, "Yeah, Chinese Democracy." And he wasn't, the DJs there, and the guy from Utopia, Craig, I'm fairly certain it was Craig that was there that night. They weren't like, "Yeah, Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy." They were like, I said, "Guns N' Roses." I said, yeah, Chinese Democracy. This was their level of enthusiasm. Chinese Democracy, yes. We're going to play it. They were like, "Look at this. We're going to play Chinese Democracy. We're going to play Chinese Democracy." They were like, "We're going to play the album, yes." And they played it fairly nonchalantly. I think they got through maybe half the album through the entire night. A song here and a song there, because it would have been, all night would have been Motley Crue, Poison, Cinderella, AC/DC. It was generally a glam metal night. And they played all the glam metal greatest hits all night, like Motley Crue, David Lee Roth, everything all night. And GNR was very prominent. And I remember no one inside really talking about it. They're like, I think I mentioned it to a few people, they're like, "Oh, they went Chinese Democracy." Yeah, okay. Too little, too late. I was still excited about it at that point. I think 90% of all other metalheads were like, "Who cares? Too little, too late. Chinese Democracy. So what?" In fact, that night I didn't hear, because if there had been real excitement, people would have been talking about it. And the conversations that night, because it was a dance floor, but then you had your tables and people doing conversations. Some people were dancing, some people were doing conversations. And there was not one conversation about Chinese Democracy that night. People were talking about anything else, or other things, or other bands. It wasn't, "Oh yeah, Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy." It was, yeah, Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy. Yeah, okay. Alright. That is what the excitement and the hype were like towards Chinese Democracy. So that is what the excitement and the hype was like for Chinese Democracy when it came out in 2008. And the DJs throughout the night played it, but they weren't, "Yeah," they didn't even announce the songs, they just played them. And I was like, I think I said, "Chinese Democracy." They're like, "Yeah, Chinese Democracy." There was no excitement, more like just like, "Yeah, it's out. So what?" Many other bands are doing more things, and Chinese Democracy, yeah, okay. People were not hyping the album, and I don't listen to it anymore. I stopped listening to it in 2012. Better is that is a standout track from, and If the World. I really liked If the World and Better, which are Axl solo songs. Chinese Democracy, Axl's a solo project. It's Axl's solo album, and that's what the hype was for Chinese Democracy. Very little excitement. And in retrospect, too little, too late. So many other bands. So many other bands. So many other better bands